Country, people are gathering and paying respects to fallen Canadians, veterans, and current members of the armed forces. Thanks for joining us here on CP24. I'm Nick Dixon. Well, many, of course, made the ultimate sacrifice. 66,000 Canadians died in the First World War, the war to end all wars, and then 44,000 were killed in the Second World War, which ended 80 years ago. 516 Canadians died in the Korean War, 165 killed in Afghanistan, including 7 civilians. And ceremonies today and right now are being held in cities and towns from coast to coast to coast. The City of Toronto will be holding a Remembrance Day ceremony at Old City Hall Cenotaph. Mayor Olivia Chow and Ontario's Lieutenant Governor Edith Dumont will be joining thousands of people, including war veterans, who will be in attendance. We're live outside the Cenotaph this morning. And we are also live at Queen's Park this morning, where the province will be hosting a special Remembrance Day ceremony. We'll take you there live momentarily and show you the scene outside Queen's Park. And then this is a live look right now outside the National War Memorial in Ottawa. The Governor General will not be at this year's Remembrance Day ceremony. She is in hospital recovering from a respiratory virus. However, Chief Justice Richard Wagner will be presiding in her place this morning again. So these are live pictures in Ottawa this morning. Prime Minister Mark Carney and other dignitaries will also be there, as this ceremony will also be marking 80 years since the end of the Second World War. Also, veterans and their families are gathering this morning at Sunnybrook as well. Sorry, this is going back to Queen's Park here for a moment, just to show you the wall and the memorial service set for Queen's Park as well. So this is at the provincial legislature this morning. So these are live pictures coming out of the provincial legislature, where that ceremony will be getting underway shortly. And also, veterans and their families are gathering today for a special Remembrance Day service at Sunnybrook Hospital's Warriors Hall. Local government representatives, Veterans Affairs Canada, and Royal Canadian Legion members will also be in attendance there. Also, schools in the GTHA are holding Remembrance Day ceremonies to reflect and honor those who've paid the ultimate sacrifice. We're live this morning at Courcelette Public School in Scarborough, where there will be a ceremony getting underway momentarily as well. They're getting the students and staff organized in the auditorium there. Now, also today, Remembrance Day ceremonies have already taken place right across the city this morning. Dozens gathered at Prospect Cemetery on St. Clair West, where about 5,300 Canadian soldiers and allies are buried. Municipal, provincial, and federal dignitaries, including Mayor Chow, were in attendance. The event was organized by the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 26646.
To be here, especially on a day like this with the snow and the cold, it actually gives me pause to think about the experiences that our service members have gone through in the past and in the present. The commitment to the military is not always comfortable, and it means a lot that we put ourselves into these situations. And it makes help me also honor the sacrifice that family members have made in my family in the past. I've had great-grandparents serve in both wars.
And this is another example of a sunrise ceremony of Remembrance Day. This was held at the Meadowvale Cemetery Chapel in Brampton this morning, where community members and local leaders, including Brampton's Mayor Patrick Brown, were paying tribute to the brave individuals connected to the city who served and continue to serve for our freedom. The annual gathering is organized by the City of Brampton and local Legion branches. And 80 years after the end of the deadliest conflict in history, the number of living Second World War veterans in this country has now dwindled to a few thousand. Veterans Affairs Canada says it estimates that as of this year, there are just under 3,700 surviving Canadian veterans. And Veterans Affairs also estimates the number of living vets from the Korean War is approximately 1,900. Well, this morning, a new survey is out suggesting that fewer Canadians are planning on observing Remembrance Day this year as compared to a year ago. The Leger survey says 69% intend to mark the day this year in at least one way, including wearing a poppy or observing a moment of silence. But that's down 7% from just a year ago. Now, in this poll, it finds that Liberal Party supporters were most likely to say that they would observe Remembrance Day this year. That was at 77%, while supporters of the Bloc Québécois were the least likely. More than three-quarters of the people surveyed, though, are in favor of making this day a national statutory holiday, while 15% were against that idea. And joining me live as our coverage continues this morning is Lieutenant Colonel James J. Stalker. In brief, Lieutenant Stalker began his military career in the Queen's Rangers, enlisting while in high school in the year 2000, commissioning in 2002, and of course he has held every regimental officer appointment since then. He maintained an active full-time military career and now serves as Acting Chief of Staff Reserves, Canadian Army Doctrine and Training Centre. Good to see you back, James, for your fourth time here on the CP24 Remembrance Day Special. Appreciate you being here. Also joining me this morning is Lieutenant Colonel Chris Canavan. In brief, Lieutenant Canavan joined the Canadian Armed Forces in 2003 as an infantry officer with the Lincoln and Welland Regiment. Currently serves as the Deputy Commander, 32 Canadian Brigade Group, supporting the unit from the GTA and Niagara. So certainly appreciate both of you being here this morning. James, I'll start with you. You're the veteran here of this broadcast, so I appreciate you being here on this Remembrance Day. As you likely do every day, your head probably goes somewhere and your heart may go somewhere else. Where would you say you're at this morning as we await the Remembrance Day ceremonies to get underway?
Well, thanks, Nick, and again, always a pleasure and honor to be here on this most solemn of occasions, certainly for military personnel. I would say my head and heart both are with those who came before me and those who made the ultimate sacrifice so that I can enjoy the privileges of being a Canadian in modern Canada today, and I think that's really important to keep that in mind.
Certainly is. Same question to you, Lieutenant Colonel. Is that where your head goes today? Where do your thoughts go on a day like Remembrance Day?
Exactly. First, I go to the family, obviously, of all the soldiers who have served. Those who have passed, the families obviously bear an even more importance on days like today. And even though we recognize the work of all those good soldiers, we need to make sure those families are also taken care of. So.
It's interesting to have both of you as guests this morning because both of you were part of a very, I think, probably operation unlike you would have ever expected to get into when you first joined the military. And that was, of course, Operation Laser, I believe it was called, during the COVID pandemic here in Ontario. You both worked very closely with each other. Chris, I'll start with you on this. That experience, no weapons necessary. This was, helping Ontarians, helping your fellow Canadians and citizens here. What was that like as a member of the military, helping out people who were so vulnerable in our own country?
Yeah, it was incredibly honoring to work with James and the rest of the team, the soldiers, the nurses, the Canadian Forces nurses that were there as well. It's not just serving with a rifle overseas, especially as, the primary reserves. Our goal is also step up for domestic operations. And it was really impactful to help those Canadians that really needed help at the time.
Yeah, I wonder, James, we've talked about this over the last couple of years as well here, but there's just that experience again that just was, non-military yet protecting and helping at the same time.
That's right. And I think incredibly impactful to everyone who served on that mission, because in a very real concrete way, day after day, those personnel that deployed in homes or those who were supporting those who deployed into those homes were able to help Canadians in their hour of most extreme need. And I think that was a real honor.
I thought it was interesting, due to the fact that we don't typically see Canadian soldiers deployed in Canada. Generally, it's an overseas sort of a scenario here. So what was that like, that there was a little bit of more attention and more obvious presence being in our own province as well at that time?
I think in particular for reservists, you do see a huge groundswell of willingness to take part when the operations are at home. And you see that with things like Operation Lentis, like floods or forest fire relief. And you saw this with Laser as well. But it certainly drove the point home that we are here to serve Canada and Canadians.
Yeah, and you've served us very proudly, and we appreciate that indeed. Chris, I want to pick up on something we just mentioned here, that Leger survey out today suggesting that fewer Canadians this year are going to be sort of taking time, as we look live at the City Hall Cenotaph right now, taking time to honor and mark Remembrance Day. How does that number strike you down just from a year ago?
I think like most things go in waves. Remembrance Day, while super relevant to us in uniform, education is really important to the schools. Working forwards to explain World War II veterans as they come in a smaller number, but then focusing on our Korean veterans, our Bosnian, Balkan folks, as well as our Afghanistan veterans are all prevalent to Remembrance Days moving forward.
Absolutely. James, what about you? How does it strike you? Because this also coincides with the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War, which to me may have, I thought, spurred perhaps more people to be taking part this year.
I would agree. I think there is a link between the two, and as the World War II generation grows older and those numbers dwindle, I think it's incumbent upon all of us who are able to forge individual relationships with the surviving veterans and to hear their stories. And that perhaps would be an antidote to disengagement on things like Remembrance Day.
Right now we're looking live at the old City Hall Cenotaph down, of course, on Queen Street in downtown Toronto. And James, you and I were speaking before this special began about, again, we can see these soldiers wearing the different sort of almost eras of the Canadian military uniform here. I know you like this, but what is it you particularly like about how they do this and represent the Canadian military here down at the Old City Hall Cenotaph?
I think what I find particularly impactful about this is that it shows that service is a continuum, and that it can bring you back as a current serving member to say those who came before, whatever era of service, were not so different. And if you read service records or talk to veterans from older generations or read their stories, you realize there's actually more in common than separates. And you can see that visually in sort of that military service through time that we see at the Cenotaph there.
There's a line that you can draw all the way from, back, I believe there's Boer War soldiers here as well. Chris, I wonder your take on that as well here, that we're seeing so many eras and generations of our military.
No, it's perfect. And I think the snapshot of Canadian history, right? Before Canada was even a country, we had local reservists called militiamen back there that were defending the interests of Canada. And that would continue through all periods of time. We have a beautiful plaque in my home armory, Lake Street, that has each of those generational uniforms as well posted, so we all remember all of the soldiers. And
of course, it's interesting, on this Remembrance Day as well, the attention that's being paid to the Canadian military as well, as we've seen changes in our NATO defense spending, for example, here. Not looking for you to get political, but just that attention and focus on that from the Carney government here, Chris. I wonder if you could pick up on that, on what the reaction has been amongst, your regiment to not only the attention, but the additional resources that appear now to be becoming the way of the military.
I mean, personally, from us in 32 Brigade, our reserve soldiers are really excited to operationalize. When the equipment becomes available, we're really excited, but it enables us to do things like Operation Laser, continue to deploy overseas with the best equipment possible. So that's always exciting.
Okay, we're going to pick up on that conversation momentarily now, but we're going to, of course, have team coverage of this Remembrance Day this morning. Beatrice Vaisman is also live at the Old City Hall Cenotaph. She will be part of our coverage down there for this special this morning. So, B, I'll hand it over to you right now.
Nick, this ceremony is set to begin just within the next few minutes. And then, of course, at 11 o'clock this morning, we'll hear the 11 chimes on the bell tower here at Old City Hall. Already a pretty sizable crowd. And these are often people who come every year, year after year, to spend Remembrance Day here to mark this incredibly important day in this country and to spend time together. And that includes a lot of veterans as well who come here, including retired Major Harris Silver, who served in the Royal Canadian Regiment, who I just met here. He's been coming here for some 15 years. With your fellow veterans. First of all, Major, thank you for your service. Tell me about, thank you about what you're reflecting on today and what Remembrance Day means to you.
I think the biggest thing is remembering those friends and colleagues that we served with and those that aren't with us this day. So really remembering them puts the real brings it home, the personal touch.
Is there someone specifically who you think of?
There's a couple of fellows. Captain Mark Walden and Colonel Jeff Parker, both not with us anymore, and thinking of those two guys today.
Obviously, for people like yourself who, don the uniform, who served, who know people who did pay the ultimate sacrifice, and for many that's whether on the front lines or to, mental health afterwards is what I'm hearing from a lot of people. How important is it to look around and see so many people coming out here to pay tribute to your friends, to others?
Yeah, I think it's, I was in when we used to call it the dark days, where there wasn't as much public support, and so I think it's really refreshing to see and a lot more public support now. And I think people are, especially with sort of younger veterans, it's more in the public eye. I think for a while it was really being forgotten, and I think that really helps get the messages across. And I think we also come out just to support each other. We try to keep up with each other, and this is a time during the year where we can all get together, tell those old stories and just visit with friends that you haven't seen for a while.
Help us understand, Major, some of those old stories. I mean, we're looking at the medals on your chest. Where did you serve? How long did you serve? And why did you decide to put on the uniform to begin with?
Well, I guess, I was a young guy looking for some adventure and wanted to give back to my country. So it seemed like a great opportunity, and it afforded me a chance to see different parts of the world. I've deployed to the Balkans, three different missions, and over into Egypt, and then domestically as well, whether it be the ice storm or support up into the Arctic as well. So it really gave you an opportunity to get out, see this country, other countries, and also meet a lot of other Canadians from across the country that I might not have met as a young kid from Southern Ontario. I met people from all across the country in training and courses and deployments. So it was a real sort of nation building experience for me, I think.
comes to national pride, I mean, what does, being a Canadian, serving as a Canadian across the world mean to you?
I think we're still, like, we go there and we get things done. We're always seen as the people that can be counted on to get the job done, especially when we're working in multinational headquarters or multinational units. Our work ethic is pretty strong. We just kind of work with everybody to get things done, which I think that's still valuable by our allies and the groups that we work with.
Thank you, Major Harris Liver, for your time, for your vulnerability as well, speaking to me, and for your service. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the service, Nick, will begin here shortly. There was just a flyover that happened overhead, but an incredibly emotional day, of course, for those who have served, those who have lost friends, family members, in various wars, and afterwards. Mental health playing such a large component for our veterans after service as well. And so here we are at the city, remembering those who paid the ultimate sacrifice.
Certainly does a nice tribute indeed. And we also, of course, have to talk about caring for those veterans. Beatrice, appreciate that. More from B coming up. In the meantime, our Courtney Heels live this morning at Canada's largest veteran centre this Remembrance Day. She's up at Sunnybrook for Operation Raise a Flag, a really beautiful scene there annually. This is the 15th year we've seen this now, Courtney.
We have, and they raise money to support the programs here at the Veterans Center, Nick. They do such incredible work here. The veterans have the best medical care, but they also have a number of different opportunities, things like excursions. They have art programs. They have music programs. They also say the money goes into renovating this center. There are about 150 veterans who live here year-round. I'll step out of the way and show you some of the flags on the lawn here. About 30,000 flags on the lawn surrounding this building. We know that staff and volunteers have been busy setting them up so that first thing this morning, the veterans who woke up on this Remembrance Day would look out the window and see how much we appreciate the sacrifices they made. What's happening inside right now, there is a private ceremony. This is an opportunity for veterans to come together with their friends and family, also with the staff here at Sunnybrook Hospital. Earlier, there was a visit from Premier Doug Ford. He took a few minutes out of his day to come here to visit with some of the veterans, pay his gratitude to the staff members as well. We'll let you hear from him. We had a chance to speak with him briefly as I was heading inside.
There's so many people, millions and millions of people around the world and here in Canada that served to protect our freedoms and our democracies, and we just are very, very grateful for that.
And that's what today is all about, showing gratitude, respect, taking a few minutes to reflect. Now, later this morning, Nick, the plan here at Sunnybrook is at about 11:15. They will have a procession down the street just outside of the Veterans Center. We're kind of between the Veterans Center and Sunnybrook Hospital here. Down the road, they close it down. The buses pull over, and the veterans come down this street along with some of the staff, family, friends. They go to the cenotaph along Bayview, and there's going to be a ceremony there that goes between 11:30 and 12. And members of the public are allowed to attend this, or welcome to. I've been here in years prior. It is certainly quite a moving ceremony as well, because usually when they're walking down the road here, people applaud and they say thank you. They really show their respects on this Remembrance Day. That's what it's all about, of course. So we'll continue to cover that very, very closely here. It's such an important day, and so many people are coming back together to reflect.
Absolutely. Okay, Courtney Heels is live this morning outside Sunnybrook Veterans Center Court. Appreciate this. We have a couple of minutes before things really get underway at Old City Hall at the cenotaph there this morning, so we're going to get back into it with our guest this morning. Lieutenant Colonel is joining me this morning. Let's talk about this. The tributes at Sunnybrook Hospital. This is the 15th year we've seen this Operation Raise a Flag. Just how special is that for these, right now, Second World War Korean veterans to see how much people still care and think about them?
I can only imagine how important and meaningful it is for them. And as you pointed out, it is, I believe, the largest dedicated veterans wing in the country. So really an incredible sight and just a heartwarming, to me, moment.
And so much of it, Chris, is volunteer driven. Of course, there's a board there and people who work there as well, but there's just so much care that goes into caring for our veterans. And that's something, some people say they can be forgotten, but they're clearly very much in focus on a day like today. No,
it's great to see Sunnybrook continuing that legacy of supporting veterans, those who are in the home, but also those who have gone through it in the years past. So, it does have a touching moment as we see those fine individuals being taken care of in their later stages.
Yeah, yeah, and those 30,000 flags, really, the Canadian Indigenous flags, look wonderful. We're watching live this morning. This is downtown, just outside Old City Hall, as a parade is arriving here, getting ready for the ceremony to begin here. It's supposed to be getting underway at about 10:50, so in about a minute or so, but we will continue to wait for this, because also being there will be the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, Edith Dumont, and of course Mr. Tony Viscardi, accompanied by Her Worship Mayor Olivia Chow. So all of that is to come here as we get the Remembrance Day ceremony, which we will be focusing on at the Old City Hall Cenotaph. I wonder, James, if you weren't here, which ceremony would you be attending on Remembrance Day?
That's a great question. I think I would likely be at Queen's Park, but certainly people go to a variety of services across the city.
Absolutely. And Chris, to you, where would you be out in Welland?
Yeah, I'd be out in Niagara. We have a little circuit of former COs and former serving members. We visit some of the grave sites of some of our World War II veterans, and then we'll gather locally at whatever cenotaph we end up with. For me, it's generally St. Catharines.
Generally in St. Catharines. We can also take you live. I believe these are pictures coming out of Ottawa this morning, where they're lining up outside the National War Memorial, of course, for the national celebration on Remembrance Day. Pardon me, that's in our pop-up box this morning. So we will have more coverage coming from Ottawa as well. But again, we are focusing this morning live in Toronto here. You can see walking along Queen Street here as we prepare for the Remembrance ceremony down at the Old City Hall Cenotaph here. Always poignant, always interesting too, I think, James, to hear. You know, as much as you say a lot of it is we hear the same and again, there's sometimes different themes that get picked up on year after year. I wonder what you think. Do you think it'll be more focused on Second World War? Do you think it'll be focused on Canada's renewed sort of vigor and military efforts? What do you think we might hear today?
I think we're going to hear a lot about the 80th anniversary of the Second World War. And as a theme we've touched on in the past, the changing face of veteranhood. And as we enter that 80th anniversary, you think about the very youngest veterans of that conflict are now in their late 90s. And kind of what that means for the changing face of veteranhood. So I would not be surprised if that theme is picked up on today, but also the impetus and the requirement I would offer for all of us who are able to forge those personal connections while there's time.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, this is Premier Doug Ford now arriving at Queen's Park. Of course, this is the ceremony that James perhaps would have been at if he weren't here, but we, of course, appreciate the fact that he is here. I believe that's also Richard Romer.
It is.
Yeah, Catherine Romer arriving there this morning on the red carpet there. So they've certainly appropriately enough rolled out the red carpet at Queen's Park, so we'll have more coverage out of Queen's Park today as remembrance ceremonies get ready underway there as well. Chris, you mentioned going and honoring some of the World War II veterans who were lost in your area on a day like today. But I'm sure you also speak to veterans of that Second World War and Korean War, etc. What is it like swapping and sharing stories with veterans who served in such a completely different time as you?
Yeah, I mean, in the end, just like we talked about timelines, I think soldiers are soldiers in a lot of ways. And once you break the ice and explain to them, your point of view, and they see that relationship, you can really have that bond that you can really start opening up on.
Yeah, it's amazing. We were speaking earlier on CP24 Breakfast this morning. Jess Smith is joining us for a couple of weeks, and she talked about her grandfather, who was a motorcycle messenger in the Second World War. Now messages are instantaneous. It's satellite. It's by your phone. Just the evolution of military and technology, and there is that combination too, James. That a lot of technological advances are basically based on military here.
Yes.
When you look at that, and when you consider, as much as soldiers, there are so many changes though that happen. Do you think it happens quickly, or how do you look at that change?
So fits and starts. Technology changes kind of the form of war. This is my opinion, but the nature of war is really unchanging, and that nature of that sacrifice and that service and that hardship, that's where you can draw that solid line that runs through those generations. So I think there's more of the same than changes, I would offer.
Okay, and this is Ontario's Lieutenant Governor, Edith Dumont, now arriving this morning. Again, the Lieutenant Governor, not at Queen's Park, in fact, at the Old City Hall Cenotaph in Toronto this morning. So one of the many high-profile dignitaries here this morning as we prepare to reflect and honor on this Remembrance Day 2025. Again, as Lieutenant Colonel Stalker just mentioned, 80 years since the end of the Second World War. Chris, one of the sacrifices that we also should talk about on a day like today is, of course, people sacrifice their lives and lay down their lives, for country, etc. But also the families left behind when you deploy to wherever you go. That's not easy for the families of the soldiers either. Can you talk a little bit about that, perhaps from your personal experience? You have a wife at home.
Personal experience. When my soldiers were originally deploying to Afghanistan, it was one of the things the Sergeant Major and I, took on working with their families, making sure basic things are happening like groceries, show snuggling, but also when there's problems, making sure they can get the help they needed. I've been blessed to have my wife being supported by all sorts of people while I've been deployed various parts across the world.
That's pretty remarkable. Okay, let's start listening in now live at the Old City Hall Cenotaph as the ceremony here is about to get underway, so we'll listen.
Good morning, everyone. Please be seated. Welcome to today's Remembrance Day ceremony at Old City Hall, hosted by the City of Toronto. As we mark 100 years since the dedication of this cenotaph, we thank you for joining us today. My name is Aretha Phillip, and I'm the city's Chief of Protocol. I now wish to invite Cadets Flight Sergeant Minialov and Warrant Officer 2nd Class Rainford to share the land and ancestral acknowledgement with us.
Stand up, please. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on as our traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit. We also acknowledge the Williams Treaties, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands.
We acknowledge all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or in generations past, and those who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery.
Thank you. The visual sentries today are mounted by the 48th Highlanders of Canada, a primary reserve regiment of the Canadian Forces. The sentries are wearing period uniforms from the First and Second World Wars and current day. They are led by Warrant Officer Duff. Should you wish to follow today's program on your own device, you can find it online at toronto.ca/lest we forget. Please rise as you are able and join in the singing of our national anthem, which will be followed by the last post, the silence, the lament, and the rouse. Please remain standing until after the reading of the Act of Remembrance and the commitment to remember.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. They shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them.
Ils étaient jeunes comme nous. Ils ont servi donc généreusement de même. Nous les promettons en dépit du temps qui passe, de porter les flambeaux et de ne jamais oublier. Nous nous souviendrons. Nous nous souviendrons. They were young as we are young. They served, giving freely of themselves. To them we pledge, amid the winds of time, to carry their torch and never forget. We will remember them.
Please be seated. I would like to thank Mike Turner, District Poppy Chair with the Royal Canadian Legion, for reading the Act of Remembrance, and Kavitha Sakunarajani, Executive Director, Toronto Youth Cabinet, for reading the Commitment to Remember. I'd also like to acknowledge Senator Rob Baskey from the Métis Nations of Ontario Veterans Council, who carries their Eagle staff. I now wish to call upon Her Worship, Olivia Chow, Mayor of Toronto, to address the gathering, followed by the singing of In Flanders Fields.
Bonjour, Edith Dumont, Councillor Michael Thompson. Good morning, everyone. As Mayor of Toronto, I'm deeply humbled to stand before you on this Remembrance Day as we gather together at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. For over a century, the people of Toronto have gathered here at Old City Hall to honor the brave men and women who served and gave their lives for Canada. This sacred ground holds the echoes of generations who answered the call of duty. Young Canadians who left their homes, their families, and their futures behind to defend the peace and freedoms we too often take for granted. Today, this place reminds us of our solemn responsibility to remember. This year carries profound significance. We mark the centennial of the Toronto Cenotaph, which has stood here as an enduring symbol of the sacrifice and remembrance for 100 years. It was a century ago on this day when Governor General Lord Byng of Vimy unveiled this monument in a ceremony much like ours today. He dedicated it to the undying memory of those who fell in the Great War from 1914 to 1918. Sadly, we would go on to add the names of those who fell in the Second World War, the Korean War, during peacekeeping missions in Afghanistan. Each inscription, a life cut short, a family forever changed, a community forever marked by loss. This year, we also commemorate 80 years since the end of the Second World War, a turning point in history made possible by the extraordinary courage of Canadians who stood against tyranny and fought for freedom. Over 3,500 Torontonians lost their lives during the Second World War. Thousands more returned home as prisoners of war, carrying wounds both visible and invisible, injuries that would stay with them for the rest of their lives. Behind every name on this cenotaph is a story, a son who never came home, a daughter whose promise went unfulfilled, a parent's unbearable grief, a spouse left to carry on alone. These were real people with dreams, with families, with everything to live for. They made the ultimate sacrifice so that we could stand here today in freedom and democracy. Remembrance is not only about the past, it is about the values of these brave Canadians fought to protect freedom, justice, and peace. Values we must defend and honor every single day. Today, we also hold close the families, loved ones, and communities who carry forward the legacy of those who served. Your loss is our nation's loss. Your loved ones will never be forgotten. And we extend our deepest gratitude to the veterans and active service members standing among us today. You continue that proud tradition of service. You honor those who came before you. We see you, we thank you, and we will always remember. Let us hold close the memory of those who gave everything. Let us remain steadfast in our commitment to peace. And let us ensure that their sacrifice was not in vain, lest we forget.
Thank you to the Elmer Eisler Singers and the 7th Toronto Regiment Royal Canadian Artillery Band. This musical version of the famous poem In Flanders Fields, written by John McCrae in 1915, was arranged by Lydia Adams, with music by the Central Band of the Canadian Armed Forces. Its depiction of poppies growing between the graves of the fallen soldiers led to the tradition of wearing red poppies in remembrance. Now, it is my pleasure to invite Her Honor, the Lieutenant Governor, the Honourable Edith Dumont, to speak.
Mayor Chow, dear veterans, members of the Canadian Armed Forces, dignitaries, family and friends, citizens of Toronto, très chers amis, bonjour, good morning everyone, bonjour. Il y a 100 ans, les noms des batailles de la Grande Guerre ont été gravés sur les flancs de ce monument. 100 years ago, the names of the battles in the Great War were engraved on the sides of this monument. Ypres, Somme, Mount Sorel, Vimy, Zeebrugge, Passchendaele, Amiens, Arras, Cambrai. For 100 years, they have served as stark reminders of the sacrifices made by Canadian soldiers and as testaments of their valor. And for 100 years, Toronto has grown up around this empty tombstone. Nearby, a new city hall, a new stock exchange, towers stretching up towards the sky, places where we work, eat, shop, meet friends, places where we exercise the freedoms that have been safeguarded for us. And at times, during these past 100 years, the dates of newer conflicts have been carved here. The Second World War, the Korean War, Afghanistan. They remind us of places far from our shores, where our soldiers have traveled, leaving their families and homes to lay down their lives for those very freedoms. Not one of us knows how many more battles and wars will be added to this monument, nor for how long peace itself will be something that needs to be fought for, to be kept. But in the act of remembering here and now, and every day and everywhere, we honor those whom this cenotaph calls our glorious dead, and we hold high the torch that they threw us with failing hands. The poppies we wear connects all of us. They speak of a promise we make solemnly and in solidarity to build not only with bricks and mortar, concrete and glass, but also with care and compassion, openness and love. A city, a province where everyone feels they belong. A country that stands as a beacon of unity in a world where we share a commitment to peace. Une ville, une province où chacune et chacun se sent chez soi. Un pays qui incarne l'unité dans un monde solidaire et engagé pour la paix. N'oublions jamais, lest we forget.
Thank you, Your Honor. We will now present the wreaths. The first wreath today will be laid by the Honourable Edith Dumont in the name of the King and on behalf of all Ontarians. Of Toronto. Veteran Affairs Canada, Tabitha Stubbs, Acting Chief of Staff. Royal Canadian Navy, Commodore Scott Robinson, Director General, Naval Force Development, accompanied by Chief Petty Officer, 2nd Class Andrew Peyton Coxon, HMCS York. Canadian Brigade Group, Canadian Army, Colonel Frank Lamy, Commander, accompanied by Chief Warrant Officer Chris Reeser. Canadian Legion, Mike Turner, District Poppy Chair. On behalf of the Youth of Toronto, Kalmitha Satkanarajan, Executive Director, Toronto Youth Cabinet. would now like to
Okay, there are several more wreaths to be presented here, but as that happens, we're also going to bring back in our guests here as our Remembrance Day special continues here on CP24. It was interesting, Lieutenant Colonel Stalker, before the wreath laying began, we heard from Lieutenant Governor Edith Dumont speaking very passionately on the importance of Remembrance Day and talking about, 100 years since the Toronto Cenotaph has been there and all the wars that have been carved into it. You have a special connection to Edith Dumont. I wonder if you could share with our audience your connection and how proud you must have felt as you heard her speaking today as well.
Certainly. So the lieutenant, due to my regiment, the Queen's York Rangers, historic background in the founding of the city of Toronto and deep roots in southern Ontario, we enjoy a relationship with the office of the Lieutenant Governor. The Lieutenant Governor is ex officio the Colonel of the Regiment of the Queen's York Rangers, and so she is our senior most ranger, in fact, and so I'm an honor to be part of her regiment.
Yeah, I'm sure that is a huge honor. And Lieutenant Colonel Canavan, you also talked about, she came and visited you and your group over the summer, and you were able to sort of show her what you do. What was that experience like, and how into it was she?
She was very enthusiastic, asking lots of questions about what her soldiers are learning, how we practice the skills to defend Canada, and we were even able to show her not only her Queen's York Rangers, but other cooperative education high school students who had just graduated their courses and then were immediately out in the field learning and using their skills.
Yeah, that is remarkable. And these ceremonies where they lay the wreaths here, there's so much symbolism to this, isn't there?
Yes, indeed there is. And there's symbolism through the entire Remembrance Day service and the sort of very familiar rhythms of the day as we discussed the last post and the rouse and the laying of wreaths and sort of the same pattern every year, which is, I think, really important to a lot of veterans.
Yeah, and it's also interesting. I love this shot in particular when it's a little bit wider of Bay and Queen, they block the intersection. You've got several hundred people who've taken time out of their day to be down there. Chris, when you look at that and you see people taking part, taking that time, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to your fellow active, current, past and present veterans as well?
It's just that recognition, right? Going back to our World War II friends or World War I comrades, seeing that pause that everyone is taking, that quick show of respect, it means a lot.
Absolutely. And we'll continue to see more and more of these wreaths being laid here as our coverage continues here at the Old City Hall Cenotaph here. I do really so much enjoy watching this, because so many people want to connect themselves to today, don't they, James? They want to be a part of this and show the respect that, quite frankly, has been earned.
I think that's right. And I think, as we discussed previously about perhaps that fraying sense of connection as we the legislature poll today, that the antidote to that is individual personal connections with veterans, with Remembrance Day services, and with the broader Veterans Week program. It's a chance to connect with veterans, and so I really do commend everyone to do so.
And Chris, you just mentioned something interesting about high school graduates getting to get out and start working on their skills. That's the fresh blood. That's the new recruits coming in here.
100%.
What do you see? Is there a strong sense of people wanting to come in and join right now? How would you assess the situation?
Very much so. We're actually growing exponentially right now with the enthusiasm of where the Army is going with increased funding, but also the prevalence of the Army Reserve. High school students, but also the cadets who we have also seen on the screen. They often do vigils 24 hours overnight at each of these cenotaphs, and they really get to learn about Canada and those values of defense that was talked about on both of those fine speeches.
Definitely. And I know, James, in the last year, you've gone from sort of full-time to reserve. How has that transition been for you, and what have you noticed or seen maybe from a different perspective now in your current role?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the reserves are the backbone of 32 Brigade Group in Toronto, the part-time reserves in particular, I would say. So it really demonstrates to me the dedication that we get out of our reservists. I mean, these are folks who enjoy, rather have full-time careers, educational pursuits, families. They do something completely different, and then in their own time, they give of themselves to the country, and I find that quite heartening.
How is that to balance? You have kids, you have another on the way.
Yes, I do.
You have full-time work as well,
yes,
and this. How does that happen?
It's a matter of prioritization. I think you decide what's important to you, and prioritize and execute that. So you like say you have a full-time career, you have family life, which is critical, as we talked about the importance and criticality of families, and then in your spare time, perhaps instead of a hobby or something else, I do reserve service, and it's I find far more impactful to me.
Yeah, Chris, what about you? In terms of that commitment, you joined up 22 years ago. Was it an easy decision, and have you ever looked back and thought where my life might have gone differently, or is this like you're doing exactly what you should be doing doing.
Exactly. I knew right away when I went to Brock University that I was going to join the reserves, and I didn't know if it was going to be, 4 years or now 22 plus years, but never regretted a moment of it. The ability to serve Canada, go across the world, train future Canadians. It's always been an exciting challenge.
And you're James, not that you're not fascinating at all, but Chris, you don't think of a lot of soldiers that are winemakers, but you're also an associate winemaker at a rather large winery out in the Niagara wine region there. Are people surprised when they find out that your background is military as well as wine? Like, it's an interesting sort of two sides of the brain almost.
Yeah, I kind of yin and yang kind of analysis of where I can, make wine, which is an exciting passion, watch people enjoy those moments, but also be supported by that industry as well. Enniskillen's been a great supporter of me serving country with potentially 4 or 5 days notice off somewhere across the world.
Yeah.
But then being able to commit time to the military as well. So it's been a great relationship.
One of the interesting things about the reserves is you do see some folks who want to do something similar to what they do during the day. So, police officers who will serve as a military police officer, for example, and others who want to do something completely different. If their day job is in an office, on those evenings and weekends, they can do things like combat engineer or artillery or armor. So you get a real mix, you get a real cross-section of Canada. And the
Certainly. No, it's wonderful. I have a neighbor, my next door neighbor, who is actually now full-time, but, I used to talk to him a lot about the different things that he did as a reservist. Now he's full-time. I want to take both of you back. You've both been deployed internationally, outside of the country here. And on Remembrance Day, where we do it here, it's very safe, it's very secure. There are these rhythms. But could each of you perhaps tell a story from Remembrance Day when you were perhaps deployed overseas and contrast that with what we see on a day like today here in Canada?
No, certainly. I mean, so I've had 2 Remembrance Days overseas. First in Afghanistan, second in Kuwait. There's a different rhythm. You're part of a multinational organization, so like the flow and rhythm of the day is quite different. But what remains the same, perhaps, is that that desire and that drive to remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice. And that's, I think, a common element, regardless of the nationality of service or what kind of task force you're serving on. There's that real drive. And I think perhaps for me, it was among the most meaningful Remembrance Days were my overseas tours.
I can imagine. Chris, same question to you.
Yeah, very similar, especially in Afghanistan where I was stationed. I was right in the Kandahar airport, so I was able to see our Canadian monuments, my own local soldier from the region who was killed a year before I deployed, the relevance and prevalence that was there, as well as those really impactful ramp ceremonies where we send not only our own Canadian soldiers home, but our allies who were serving beside us. And then the same as in Kuwait and in Iraq, to see all those nations serving together in very similar respect to their fallen.
Those ramp ceremonies, I mean, they hit, I think, Canadians very hard at home here. Many of them were broadcast live. Of course, Afghanistan, we lost under 165, I think we had in our script there, 7 civilians and then the soldiers as well. Being at those ramp ceremonies, like you said, multinational, whether it was Canadian or otherwise, some of our allies here. Do you still think about those today or any other day? How prevalent are they in your mind?
Very prevalent, and I think particularly on a day like Remembrance Day. And as you noted, it was a coalition mission. I was at a smaller outpost called Camp Nathan Smith in the north of Kandahar City. So we had a very small little unit. So very, very tight knit. And when we took part in those ramp ceremonies, which were essentially from Kandahar Airfield where Chris was based, they really hit home. And so today's the day to keep those in your minds.
What about you, Chris? Again, on Remembrance Day, clearly we remember the fallen, and those ramp ceremonies were really, I think, highlighted and brought home the realities, particularly of Afghanistan, to Canadians, right now. We can think about them and remember them.
Of course, and this is an opportunity where many of us, because of our busy lives, this is our chance where we get to come together and reflect as well. When I get back home, I'll meet up with some of my former comrades and those who are still serving, and we can reflect on those who are no longer with us.
Okay, we're just going to go back and listen into the ceremony here at Old City Hall.
Now I would like to invite Sergeant Garen Dirksen, 618, Queen City, Royal Canadian Air Cadet Squadron, to read it.
To our immortal dead, they died that we might live. They fought their fight and passed beyond all sorrow and all pain. But love shall keep their memories ever bright. Above the graves where their dead selves have lain, flowers shall grow and greet the noonday sun in bloom of beauty. Our immortal dead, so free in sacrifice shall every one, with nature blending at the dayspring's head, gather at last and know the gift they gave was not in vain, that freedom lifts her voice triumphant as a tribute to the brave who died that she might live. They shall rejoice, knowing the loved ones whom they left behind, safe in the heritage they fought to hold for Canada. And in our hearts enshrined, their names shall live, their glorious tale be told, so long as this Dominion guards the right, their arms upheld in that unequaled fight.
Thank you, Sergeant Dirksen. I now wish to invite Lieutenant Andrew Young Lee to give the benediction. Reverend Andrew K. Lee serves as a chaplain with HMCS York. The benediction will be followed by the singing of the Royal Anthem.
For those of you who wish to join me in giving thanks, I invite you to turn your hearts to the source of peace or the God of your understanding. For those who prefer not to pray, I invite you to take this moment as a time of personal reflection and gratitude. Let us center our hearts. Spirit of memory, of peace, and of tomorrow, we pause from the regular rhythm of our country and from the busyness of daily life to honor those who acted with courage and showed compassion when it was needed most. We remember those who served and gave their lives, trusting that others could continue the work they began, and those who waited at home in hope, fear, and uncertainty. We remember lives interrupted, dreams left unfinished, friendships lost through distance or death, and communities changed forever by loss. We honor not only those in uniform, but everyone who worked for peace, those who spoke against injustice, those who cared for the wounded, and those who helped bring reconciliation where conflict had caused harm. The wreaths laid here are powerful symbols of connection, linking past to present, grief to gratitude, sacrifice to hope. They remind us that courage and loss are not just history, but live on in our actions. In the care we offer one another and the choices we make for justice and peace, we remember the fallen and those who returned with heavy burdens, wounds that are invisible but real. We remember families living with absence and friends who supported them through difficult times. We remember moments of unexpected reconciliation, when former enemies became allies, and small acts of kindness helped rebuild trust. As we remember, may we find strength in their generosity and their belief that the world can be better. May the silence we keep be more than mourning and become a commitment to live with purpose, to choose understanding over indifference, to act for peace with courage, and to challenge the ease of forgetting. Let us see in remembrance a vision for the future, a world where neighbors are connected, where freedom comes with responsibility, where justice, peace, and mercy go together, and where compassion guides our choices. As we leave this place, may gratitude guide our steps. May hope guide our hearts, and may peace, fragile and precious, find a home among us in every hand we offer, every action we take, and every thought we hold. So may it be. So may it be.
Please be seated. Thank you so much for attending this ceremony today to remember. The choral music was performed by the Elmer Eisler Singers under the direction of Lydia Adams. The band of the 7th Toronto Regiment, Royal Canadian Artillery, is under the direction of Captain Karina Lamb, Director of Music. We invite you to view Toronto Remembers commemorative projections, an innovative lighting display honoring the brave Toronto residents who fought for freedom, made the ultimate sacrificing in the Second World War. This will illuminate one last time tonight on the historic west facade of Old City Hall from 5 to 11 p.m. this evening. The projection was created by Ava Animation and Visual Arts and funded in part by Veterans Affairs Canada. We would also like to thank Metrolinx for their continued partnership of the city's Remembrance Day ceremony, including the panels on the fencing behind you. We invite you to view this exhibit, which recounts significant military and peacekeeping milestones that are intertwined with Toronto's past, present, and future. For more information and stories, please visit our website at toronto.ca/remembrance. The parade will now march off with the Lieutenant Governor, Mayor, and senior military officers taking the salute. Members of the public are welcome to place their poppies on the cenotaph after the vigil centuries.
Okay, so as the Remembrance Day ceremony wraps up this morning down at Old City Hall, and we've shown you a majority of that ceremony, we're going to take you live right now to Sunnybrook Veterans Centre, where, again, the residents and many onlookers have come and gathered outside the cenotaph there. This is always a wonderful scene. Let's listen in live a little bit here outside the cenotaph at Sunnybrook right now.
I invite you now to join me as we have a prayer of our dedication of our memorial wreaths behind me. Please join me in prayer. Faithful God of the ages, 107 years ago today, the guns of war fell silent, ending the First World War. And for 107 years, people have gathered to remember and to give thanks for all those who made the ultimate sacrifice. And on this November 11th, with humble hearts and with gratitude, we gather again to remember all those who made the supreme sacrifice for us in a time of war and the many conflicts that have followed. We remember and pay honor to those who fell in battle, those among us who offered their bodies, minds, hearts, and energies to fighting for a better world. Today, as symbols of our remembrance, we unite together as a community of Sunnybrook veterans, families, neighbors, to offer these memorial wreaths in memory to all those who gave every measure of their devotion and courage. May these memorial wreaths be a beacon of inspiration to all Canadians of how we stand on the shoulders of the brave men and women who have gone before us, those who have prepared the way for us to enjoy the freedoms we have today. May they remind us of those who currently serve and the sacrifice of our Canadian forces and their families. To all those who seek to keep this world secure and free. O God of new beginnings, with a thankful heart, we now dedicate these memorial wreaths to those whose memory we cherish, now and forever. Amen. We are grateful again this year to have grade 4 students from John Wanless Public School who will join us in a song that they have prepared for today's dedication service. I know our veterans really enjoy the participation of children and young people, and so today is no different. So they will be followed by the playing of the last post by George Daines, who will then be followed by Pipe Major Sergeant Paul Turner, the 400 Squadron Pipes and Drums, who will play the lament. We will pause for 2 minutes of silence, and then Sergeant Turner will conclude the silence with the playing of the rouse. All right, so John Wanless.
Okay, we've been listening in live here. This is outside the Sunnybrook Cenotaph Warriors Hall area. Pardon me, outside Sunnybrook Veteran Center this morning as a Grade 4 choir singing What the World Needs Now to the audience there who've been celebrating Remembrance Day here at Sunnybrook. Let's take you back live now to Old City Hall as well and just show you some of the pictures here. This is a moment that is just really poignant, I think, every single year, Chris, the laying down of poppies at the cenotaph here, sort of symbolizing the kind of the end of the remembrance. It doesn't end it, of course, but you know, when you take a look at this, all these people sort of clamoring to do that. What goes through your mind?
You know, just from my own personal perspective, that's my final recognition in front of the cenotaph myself, to lay my poppy, give my final reflection thoughts before carrying on with the rest of my my day. Not that Remembrance Day ever ends for those of us who are in uniform.
Certainly not. Absolutely. James, same question to you again. That I just, whether they're putting them on wreaths, which I've never seen before, or just laying them down to the cenotaph, people really want their opportunity. If you maybe haven't laid a wreath, you can lay your poppy down.
That's right, and it's a chance to make a personal connection with the day. When you're observing the ceremonies at the end of the ceremony, at the end of Remembrance Day, you lay your poppy down, and that connects you personally to those who came before you.
And as you predicted, James, as well, during the ceremony this morning, they talked about 80 years since the end of the Second World War, and one of the wreaths being laid while we were having a conversation was Jack Boakey, retired warrant officer. Got a really nice round of applause. I'm sure both of you noticed that as we were speaking there. Just again, tying that connection to 80 years since the end of the Second World War here, and a really nice reception he got there. To no surprise, really, but it is marking that significance as you expected.
That's right, and again, we see that, sort of leavening the whole service today is that idea of continuity, and that idea of continuity of service. And we were sharing anecdotes previously about our service in Afghanistan, and that is, of course, now a full military generation ago. And since Afghanistan, there have been a number of operations. Chris and I both served on Operation Impact, which is sort of Task Force Middle East. Even since then, there's been the missions in Eastern Europe, and then in the future, who knows? But it's a constant changing face of veteranhood.
Is it strange to think, because perhaps your head goes to, but when I think of a veteran, I think of like gray hair and sort of older, weathered faces. You are veterans yourselves here, and it's sort of a. Do you think about that? Do you put yourself into context that way, Chris?
I don't personally myself. I'm sure when I take my uniform off, that will probably dawn on me a little bit more. But just talking about what James mentioned, even in our own brigade in Toronto, we have over 300 soldiers who are either in Latvia and about to come home, or about to go over to Latvia as well. So that next generation is right behind us.
Yeah. One of our colleagues actually has her brother who's heading over there this month as well. And that's the thing, Canadians, sometimes we don't know, on a day like this we can sort of highlight this, that there are still active service members out in the world helping, protecting, defending, James. This is something that I think we should be talking about on a day like this.
I think that's right. It's a fairly substantial number of Canadian forces, men and women who are serving overseas right now, whether it's in Eastern Europe in training or reassurance missions to our allies, a variety of UN missions, drug interdiction task force, humanitarian efforts. There are a number of fairly large-scale efforts going on overseas that the Canadian Forces members are on every day, and will continue to be on.
And Chris, you mentioned something earlier about that your recruitment is going really well, that people are showing a real interest, whether it's perhaps based on the government showing more interest and offering up more money, it seems, to the military here. But when you think about it, it's self-sacrifice. You've got to be a special kind of person, I think, to sign up for the military. And what do you see when people are, high schoolers are kind of knocking on the door, coming and saying, "Hey, I want to join. I want to enlist"?
I think it's just that dedication of protecting the Canadian values. As it sounds, peace, both at home and abroad, requires the right individuals who want to, potentially put themselves up for the ultimate sacrifice. Be it a high school age or into your, late 50s potentially. It's all the same.
And of course, we're at an interesting, geopolitically, we're at a really interesting time here where, Canadians, feel like our sovereignty is at least being challenged from south of the border here. The Canadian pride that I'm sure must go around as you speak to your colleagues, James, how would you say, just the last 9-10 months and the Canadian pride and military field?
I think there definitely has been an upsurge in patriotism. You've seen it's been a salutary effect. Perhaps it has something to do with the increased recruitment we're seeing. I think it's a positive sign. I think pride in Canada, in Canadian values, is a pure positive, and is perhaps an antidote to some of the cynicism that we also see in society.
Yeah, Chris, what about you? Same question. This feeling of proudly wearing a maple leaf and contrasting ourselves with, quite frankly, America south of the border and the threat that some feel from President Trump.
Yeah, I mean, I personally have worked with our American allies quite a bit, so I have a great relationship with them and their soldiers, and I think we will continue to do so into the future. But we know holistically in the world there's evil. And if Canadian values want to be maintained, we do need soldiers in order to maintain it.
Yeah, okay, right now we were just actually looking at, and just to sort of circle back to that, was Jack Boki, the retired warrant officer who, again, got that rousing applause earlier today being interviewed there. So I'm sure we'll turn some clips around from that, because, you know, to hear from a veteran from the Second World War, James, that is significant as ever on a day like today, 80 years since the end of that war.
Yes, it is. And as I mentioned before, I think it's a day to take stock and to try to establish a personal connection, in particular with an older generation of veterans, to hear their stories, to ask them questions, to understand their experience, because again, there's that continuity. There's not that firm separation.
Yeah. We're about to wrap up here, and I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate not only the service you've done for our country, but for being here today and sort of helping guide our audience through today. I realize, you know, people are laying down their poppies. It's kind of the end of the sort of the formal part of it. But Chris, where will you go from here? Will you be going back to the cenotaph locally? Will you be going back to your regiment? How do you spend the rest of the day?
I'm going to head home, which is great. And then, like I said, I have some friends who I've served with over the years, and we get a chance to connect with each other for a couple hours before we get back to our day.
And we got about 15 seconds. James, what do you do to wrap up today?
Same. I'll connect with some friends and colleagues, but Veterans Week continues.
Yeah.
And in fact, tomorrow I'm speaking to a group of Cubs. I know a lot of veterans and soldiers are spread out across the city and province, connecting with Canadians.
Wonderful. Listen, thanks again for what you do. Appreciate this. Thank you so much, Chris. Pleasure meeting you. Thanks for being part of the coverage again today. That wraps up our coverage here on CP24, our special Remembrance Day coverage. Appreciate you joining in and tuning in. It's time now for CTV at noon.